Hey, how's it going? And welcome to the show. And today we're discussing how to plan and prepare for a month-long canoe tripping expedition, along with essential gear items you'll need, and the mentality of being out in the wilderness for an entire month. So, let's get to her. Now, before we get into it, just understand that 30 days in the wild is no walk in the park. You'll need to rely entirely on yourself, your gear, and the other members of your party. This kind of expedition presents a major challenge, as it will be physically demanding at times, as well as mentally trying. You'll need to adjust to a life with far less luxury and may feel secluded or disconnected from civilization, as you may not see any other people over an extended period. You'll also likely face a wide range of weather patterns, varied terrain, paddling conditions, and a whole slew of other potential issues. So make sure that during the prep stage of the trip that you plan your route, pack all the essentials along with managing your food needs well ahead of time and for the extent of the trip. If you consider yourself a hardcore canoe tripper, a prepper, a survivalist, or an outdoor enthusiast who's looking to test their skills, then this is something I highly suggest you give a shot. When planning your route before anything else, it's important to ask yourself and your group, what kind of pace are you looking for, and how experienced is everyone in the group? Do you want to cover a lot of ground every day and push it hard, or would you rather take a more relaxed approach? Are there any beginners in the group? How many long portages do you have to cover? And what is the overall fitness level of the participants? Are there any region-specific hazards you need to be aware of when planning your route? Are there any difficult sections of whitewater or waterfalls to navigate around? Is the region prone to severe weather or natural disasters like flash flooding? Are there any medical conditions within the group to manage or mitigate? And are there any trip-related goals or specific landmarks you'd like to visit? For instance, on my last month-long trip, we climbed Maple Mountain in Lady Evelyn Smoothwater Provincial Park after paddling 13 days in the wilds of Temagami. This kind of thing often promotes a sense of adventure and purpose into the group dynamics of the trip, giving you a shared mission to set out and accomplish. Now, the average paddler generally paddles approximately 4 kilometers or 2.5 miles an hour. So if you're intending on paddling for 5 hours a day, then choose a suitable campsite approximately 20 kilometers or 12.5 miles away. This will also vary from day to day depending on the amount and length of portages you'll face, so be fairly flexible. When planning your route from day to day, the first thing you'll want to do is to go out and get yourself a waterproof topographical map for the region you'll be paddling, along with a map case and compass. Then, find the legend and look for the scale of the map. This is generally represented by a ratio. On this Temagami map, the scale is 1 to 80,000. This means that each of the 1 centimeter squares on the map represents 80,000 centimeters or 800 meters on Earth. For example, if you wanted to paddle from the number 5 on mark beside Bear Island to the number 6 on Cross Lake, take some sort of paracord or lanyard and precisely track out the proposed route. Follow the contours, track over the portages, and around any obstacles that you'll have to navigate. Then, take the cord and straighten it out along the grid lines. Count the squares and multiply by 0.8. This will give you the distance in kilometers. In this case, I counted 29 squares, so the overall distance traveled would be 23.2 kilometers or 14.7 miles. Do this for each day of trip, write it down, and plan to give yourself some rest days. This will vary depending on what kind of trip you're looking for, but it's generally good to give yourself at least 4 to 5 rest days throughout a month-long trip. Try to be flexible when you use them, as you're going to be out there for a long time and will see a wide range of weather conditions. I personally like to save them for stormy weather, or I'll sometimes stay an extra day when I found a really nice campsite that I like. It's also extremely important to know where all the access points are throughout the regions you'll be paddling, so you can have an efficient and effective exit strategy in case of emergency. I'd also highly advise you let at least 2 other people outside of the trip know your route and your plans for evacuation, so they can help in case things go south. Don't rely on cell service in remote regions. It is generally best to bring some kind of spot device or satellite phone for communications, both to check in and for emergency evacuation purposes. Preparing food for a long-term canoe tripping expedition in many ways is all about knowing yourself, your eating habits and needs, along with your ability to ration your food effectively throughout the trip without it going bad. Always bring enough for each member of the group and don't rely on fishing or hunting to get you through the trip. Although you can use these methods to supplement in a fresh meal from time to time, it is extremely important to always bring enough food with a few extra days worth as emergency meals. For the first night and morning, you can generally bring pretty much any meal you'd like, including raw meats and veggies like steak or eggs, which are generally pre-scrambled and freeze overnight in a sealed plastic Nalgene container, allowing to thaw throughout the first day, then to be eaten the following morning at breakfast. For the first few days, especially in the fall when the temperature is lower, you can generally get away with bringing standard fare meals including pre-cooked meat like turkey, bacon, or sausages, and most veggies will still last until the 5th or 6th day, depending on the heat while out on trip. After that, you're going to want to look at things like pasta, instant oatmeal, wraps with peanut butter and Nutella, as well as prepackaged meals like sidekicks or mac and cheese. These both can be made without milk using butter, powdered milk, or oil, and should be repackaged accordingly in Ziploc bags to eliminate clutter. You can also dehydrate food, eat trail mix along with beef jerky, and can purchase excellent freeze-dried food options. Brands like Mountain House or Backpacker's Pantry are great for the second half of trip as they pack small, are easy to prepare, and last a long time without spoiling. When packing food for a month, you'll generally need multiple food packs to accommodate each paddler. For instance, on my last month-long trip, we brought approximately 155 liters of food just for 2 of us, using a 60-liter barrel pack and 2 other packs lined with dry bags. Try to avoid bringing additional barrel packs. You'll eat your way through the food throughout the trip and barrels won't collapse down. The soft packs with dry bags are much easier to repurpose, can be rolled up and be put away. It's also possible to plan ahead of time for a food drop at some point during the expedition by coordinating with others outside of the trip or by going on a food run by paddling into town or to grab more food and supplies. Make sure to always hang your food up overnight to keep bears at bay and always bring more than enough creature comforts to keep morale up throughout the trip. Bring lots of snacks, and if you're a coffee drinker, don't skimp out. You'll be out there for a long time, so prepare and ration accordingly. To get you through a month in the wilds, away from civilization, you'll need a solid backpack, preferably 80 liters or more, lined with a dry bag, a suitable sleeping bag, pad, and shelter. Whether it be a tent or a hammock, that's up to you. You'll also need a proper form of water purification, like a water pump or gravity filter. You'll want a small grill to cook over the fire, plenty of fire starter, along with a portable gas stove with at least 3 large fuel canisters per person, generally saving the gas for wet, rainy days or fire bans. On top of that, make sure to bring a sturdy fixed blade knife, either a small axe or saw, dependable rain gear, a headlamp with extra batteries, a well-stocked first aid kit, a solid tarp with paracord, and as previously mentioned, a map and compass. Now, to tell you the truth, when it comes to clothing, I usually pack around the same amount for a month as I would for a 5 to 7 day trip. Generally bringing 5 pairs of socks and athletic underwear, 1 set of designated wet clothes for day-to-day travel, and 1 full set of dry clothes for around camp. Maybe with an extra layer or 2 depending on the season. Avoid cotton, especially in colder conditions. Wool or other synthetic options like fleece are much better as they generally dry quickly, but more importantly, will keep you warm even when wet. On top of rationing food throughout the trip, you'll also find yourself rationing your toilet paper as well. So, bring lots. But if you run out, you can also use leaves if need be. Make sure to bring a trowel to dig cat holes and bring plenty of camp suds and hand sanitizer to keep clean throughout the trip. Then, throw them in a small dry bag. In the end, the equipment you bring with you has to be reliable. Avoid buying cheap, crappy gear as it needs to last. Take care of your equipment. Always clean and maintain them when needed. On the other hand, though, avoid bringing too much gear as it'll have to fit in the canoe and you'll often be carrying it during portages. So the things that you carry really do matter as the success of the trip and even your life can depend on the gear options you choose. Ultimately, a month-long canoe trip involves a lot of work and preparation ahead of time. It can also be extremely trying while you're out there. Half the battle is planning your route, what gear you pack, and managing your food effectively. To set yourself up for success, always make sure to take care of yourself while out in the field. Try to avoid taking unnecessary risks if possible. Wash yourself periodically with biodegradable soap and treat any wounds right away, no matter how minor they may seem, to avoid infection. Even small afflictions can make or break a trip, as they may hinder your ability to travel, especially on long portages, or can get worse over time. If you're new to this kind of thing, start small with a 3 to 5 day trip, then work your way up to a week. Once you can do a week-long trip, you can then start thinking about pushing it out to a month. Generally, I find it starts to become second nature once you've been out there for 8 days straight, being more and more routine as you go. One of the best indicators that you are successful at the end of a trip is if you don't want to go back at all, have food to spare, and are more or less comfortable the whole time. This kind of trip represents a significant challenge. It is something you work towards and can be an excellent form of self-discovery, as you will learn the true meaning of self-reliance, along with what it takes to survive it in the wild for 30 days. Think you can do it? Well, thanks again, everyone. Hope this was helpful. Have a good one, and get out there and explore. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like, subscribe, and click the notification bell for more Tripping Authority videos.